G'day guys and welcome back to Supercoach with DR. For today's video we've got the Q&A session 2 where I'll answer all the rest of the questions that I didn't get to in my last video. So I got through all of the YouTube comments and questions in the last one, and now I'll get to those other questions from different sources that I got. So as I said, I'll do my best to answer them, and let's get straight into it. So the first one here is from Neville Young. G'day Nev, how are you mate? How about the Big O as a ruck forward swing? Looking for a pod at F4. Look, Nev, I know you're a big Brisbane fan, mate, and I love the Big O too, but not for Supercoach. You know, Steph's still the main man in the ruck. Big O, he'll play predominantly forward. No offence whatsoever, mate, but there's nothing that I really like about the pick. And look, even his spot isn't exactly 100% at the moment for the starting 22. Look, I think that he'll be in the starting 22, but if his form isn't great during the year, then there's blokes like Ballenden, even Payne, where you could swing back forward, wherever you want to put him, could come into the side as well. So, yeah, I don't even really like his job security, mate. But, look, if you're going for a massive pod key forward, just looking to go a little bit wacky, then I'd be taking a look at someone like Tex Walker and see if he looks to be moving up to the wing during the Marsh series, mate. But, yeah, unfortunately, mate, don't like the Big O as a pick. But, yeah, there's a few sort of key forwards, your Lynches, that you could be looking at for that spot, mate. So the next one is from Joel Heath. G'day, Joel. Highest averaging key forward. So I think it will be between Jeremy Cameron and Tom Lynch. Cameron, for me, is a massive burn man, mate, as he went a long way to stuff him a season last year. What I did with the DPP swing is I actually traded out Williams when he was injured for Cameron, as I thought Cameron had a golden run of games coming up. He'd kick 30 goals in a month. I think he was playing the Suns and a few of the lower ranked sides. But it wasn't to be, mate, and he was a really mediocre pick. Look, Tommy Lynch presents much more value, but you're asking about the highest average, not the best value, I know. I think that Lynch will kick more goals, but I also think that Cameron may play a little bit further up the ground and accumulate some more possessions than Lynch. Both, play for successful sides. Both should have a lot of opportunity to hit the scoreboard. I think they'll post some really big scores between them, but also some pretty substandard scores as well. And that's what you get with key forwards, as we know. Look, Tommy McDonald, there's been a little bit of talk of him, but I've just heard recently that he's in the rehab group for Melbourne. So, red flags there with McDonald and his history. I wouldn't go anywhere near him. But I think by the end of the year, both Lynch and Cameron will have a pretty similar average. I reckon they could be within 1.5 points with each other. So I know I'm really sitting on the fence here. I'll go with Lynch just because of my bias. I like him a lot better than Cameron, I think, and he hasn't stuffed one of my seasons before. But, yeah, I don't say that with great confidence. Lynch ahead of Cameron. I think they'll be pretty similar for averages at the end of the year, mate. Next one, Rayouf Tejva. I think I've pronounced that, mate. Sorry if I haven't there, bud. Is there any way you are not starting with Grundy? Oh, one word, mate, no. Unless something drastic happens to him, and I hope I haven't bloody jinxed him now, there is 0% chance that I'll not start him in my side. And to be honest, I think that anyone who doesn't start him, they've got to be having a bit of a laugh, because I reckon he's the easiest lock in Supercoach this year, particularly with the question marks around Gawn. You've got to have Grundy in your side. He's an absolute must have Grundy. I can't stress that enough. If he's not in your side, mate, please get him in and do yourself a really big favour, mate. So the next one is from David Sams. How are you, mate? Are you going to be running any leagues this year, legend? Yeah, I will be running a few, mate. I'll be setting up the 2 YouTube subscriber leagues. So I'm hoping Thursday night I'll send the first league code out. And then another time, probably Saturday or Sunday over the weekend. I've already put a group up there. So I did a video, I think a couple of videos back, where it's got the group code. So be sure to sign up for that one, mate. And I'm also setting up my 3 cash leagues like I do each year. We got the high-end cash league, the mid, and then the lower range price league. So spots usually fill up pretty fast with the regular members. But I'll even consider opening up another league if there's any interest. But, yeah, I'd love everyone to sign up to the subscriber group so we can track each other's progress as well as provide each other with some feedback. And if anyone is interested in any of those cash leagues, either the 100, the 50, or the 20, just register your interest down here below in the comments section, and I'll shoot you my email. And if there's any spots that open up, or if there's a heap of interest, then as I said, I'll either try to find you a spot or even consider opening up a whole new cash league, and I can moderate that as I said, if there's enough interest. So, yeah, thanks for the question, mate. Next one, Dion Bonacci. My current mid is McRae, Neil, Fife, Kelly, Dangerfield, and Oliver. But one has to go. Who do I take out? Yeah, I was going to say, mate, geez, a stacked mid. Yeah, all really solid picks, mate. All really solid picks. So I'm running with McRae, Neil, and Kelly out of those 6 at the moment, with Oliver in and out of my side, it feels like, on a daily basis. Why not Fife and Dangerfield? Well, Fife, I really had to decide between him and Kelly, because I didn't want to take 2 players into the season that have some injury clouds over them, or at least some injury risks. And I know Fifey's been pretty durable over the last 2 seasons, but I don't think he's ever actually played out a full season. I think he may spend a little bit more time forward this year. Look, we know what his numbers are like. We know he's been an elite scorer for a number of years, and even when he plays forward, he can still score well. But for me, I had to decide out of him and Kelly, and I just think that Kelly's got a little bit more upside. I really think that he's coming into his peak. He's at his first full preseason, possibly ever. I may be exaggerating that, or maybe just in a few years. But I do like both picks. I think they'll both finish in the top 8 for averages. Total points, yeah, I'm not too sure, as these guys aren't too durable, Fife and Kelly. But as I said, that I'm going Kelly over Fife, because I think that he'll play more games. Why do I think that? Absolute complete gut feel, mate. An absolute gut feel. And as I said, I think Kelly's one of those real up-and-comers, and will be one of the premiums that we'll be selecting as one of our first picks in the years to come, if he can get his body right. Dangerfield, well, what will happen to him now that Tim Kelly's gone? Will it be more midfield time? You'd probably assume so. I don't think that Stephen will play full-time mid, basically like Kelly did. And I know that he didn't obviously play full-time. He rotated in and out as well, but predominantly he played mid. So you'd assume that Dangerfield would probably assume more of a midfield role. You've got Selwood in there as well, had a bit of a down year. I know he's getting over the hill as well. Selwood, does he spend more time in there? As we said, they got Jack Stephen there. How much time does he spend in there? I'm not too sure, but look, he's getting on almost the wrong side of 30 now, Danger. And as I said, I just like some of those younger guys that are more coming into their prime, I think. And Oliver, I really like the selection, mate. At the moment, just to tell you what my midfield is, I've got McRae, Neil, Dunkley, Kelly, and Cripps at the moment. So it's Kelly in and out with Oliver at this stage, but I've gone with Kelly at the moment because he actually suits my buys a little bit better at this stage, I think. But depending on what other changes I make, again, that may throw the structure completely out as well. But look, I think in closing, mate, they're all really, really solid picks. But if it was me, I'd be losing either Fife or Dangerfield, as I like the 4 picks better than those 2. But you can't go too wrong. As I said, I'd be, a bit cautious in starting both Fife and Kelly, I think. So for me, based on that logic, taking in the whole 6 that you've got there, and it's tough because this will bite me in the ass, I'm sure, but I'd probably be taking Fife out of there, mate. Just my opinion, though. Really, really tough, though. All right, on to the next selection of questions. Next one's from Glenn Watts. G'day, Glenn. Howdy, DR. Who do you think will be the biggest smoky from the Suns, apart from the rookies? So I think I mentioned the last one, mate. Someone asked a question, I forget who it was, sorry, about Weller. And so I started looking in to the Suns a little bit more, because I've really, when it comes to premium selections, just haven't really been interested in the Suns. We've obviously got Greenwood, who people have been looking at as well. But I'll give you a real smoky, a real smoky. He's a really underrated player that absolutely slips through the radar. He was 3rd in their BNF last year. He's a tackling machine, averaged the 7th most tackles in the league, and he was 8th for pressure acts in the league. So elite for defensive pressure. He played 22 games last year. He was upgraded from the rookie list back in 2018. He boosted his average by over 20 points, 21.7 to be exact. And the man I'm talking about is Darcy Macpherson. So he's a mid-forward. You've got that swing. A little bit pricey at $443,800. But I think what Darcy needs to do, he needs to get a little bit more of the ball. So we know that defensive pressure, the pressure acts and the tackles. And look, he models his game on that. He doesn't model his game necessarily on getting a high possession count. And I'm sure that the Suns' hierarchy would be wrapped with what he produced last year. And they probably wouldn't be encouraging him to even look for more of the ball. If he's coming, 7th in the league for tackles and 8th for pressure acts, then you don't want to change up too much about his game, do you? So I'm not sure how much he'll be able to increase that by. Do I think he will? Yes, I do, because he's increased his average, year by year. I think for the first 3 years, he only played a handful of games each year, but really elevated himself last year, and he's one of the first picked in the team at the Gold Coast each week. And as I said, that's evident in his finish in the BNF, where he finished 3rd. So, yeah, you asked for a real smoky, mate, so there's a real smoky for you. I don't think many people, if anyone, would have probably raised his name before. But if you're looking for a real smoky, maybe to keep a little bit of a watch on in the Marsh series, then have a little bit of a look at Darcy Macpherson, mate. Thanks for the question, bud, by the way, as well. Next one's from Samantha G. G'day, Samantha. Hi, DR. I'm a big Saints fan and new to Supercoach. Good on you. Great to have you on board, Samantha. Thank you for all your help. Not a worry at all. Who will be the highest averaging St Kilda midfielder? Look, I'm not a huge fan of the Saints midfield. Supercoach-wise, Amanda, hopefully you have a fantastic season and push towards that top 8 at least. But probably for me, I'd say Seb Ross would be the highest averaging Saints midfielder. I was looking back at a few of his numbers. I don't actually have them in front of me now. You can go back and check it out yourself on FootyWire. But I did track back to when Ratton took over as coach, and his scores seemed to skyrocket after that. I know he got, I think it was a 150, might have been a couple of 120s from memory. But yeah, his scoring just went kaboom. So, look, that may be a sign of things to come under Ratton. Look, I didn't watch enough of the Saints last year to know if there was a major change of role whatsoever, or whether it was more of a confidence thing, or he'd just have a down patch. I'm really not too sure, because I don't really rate Ross as one of the, the elites of Supercoach. But looking at his last month or two, whenever Ratton took over, if he can keep those numbers up, he'll be a top 8 defender. But I'll be really concerned about him having the ability to keep those numbers up, Samantha. So I'm sorry, I should have had the numbers in front of me here. I don't, and I've got no idea where I've put some of my other notes that I had. But yeah, for me, it will be Ross. I also think that Steele coming through will be a good selection. I know that many people picked him as a bit of a breakout contender last year and thought that, due to his tackling pressure in particular, that he may be able to really, really boost his average. So I don't think he was a really successful pick. He wasn't the worst pick in the world last year, but I certainly don't think that he turned out like those people that selected him at the start of the year would have wanted him to. But yeah, for me, Seb Ross. But to be quite honest, Samantha, and look, feel free, you're a Saints girl, and you obviously, want to have a couple of players in your side. I would not be looking to get any midfielders in from the Saints, unless it's maybe one of the rookies coming in. If you're after someone to get in from the Saints, then in my opinion, the best selection is probably Dylan Robertson at this stage to get in. Look, is it going to be someone's year like a Billings or a Gresham to break out? Maybe, and hopefully for you as a supporter. But yeah, I'm not too keen on many of the Saints players this year, to be honest, Samantha, and I think there's probably some better value elsewhere. But thanks very much for the question. Go Sainers, and hope you have an absolute ripper of a year, Samantha. Good to see you on board again. Next one's Brent Gantos. I'm not sure. Sorry, mate. I'm not the best with names. Sorry if I didn't get that one right, buddy. Is Marshall a good selection in the rucks? Mate, we saw what he did last year, and I mentioned that Jeremy Cameron went a long way to screwing my season. I put it down to three major things, okay, in regards to player selections, or non-selections in this case. Getting in Cameron for Williams just before Williams really took off, and not getting in Marshall and not getting in Dunkley. So, do I like Marshall? I think he's a great player, a terrific player, and should score pretty well. What I don't like about this pick is the fact that he's a pure ruck. If he had even that forward ruck swing, he'd be a really, really tasty option in there. And I'd most likely have him in my forward line, because having that swing, being able to go with a Combin, for example, that rookie pick, and just to cover for a Gawn or a Grundy or a Rob, whoever you're starting with, is absolutely ideal. But yeah, given the fact that he doesn't have that DPP swing, no longer a forward, he's in the rucks, I don't really like the selection at all, Brent. I think that you either pay up the extra 100k, get one of the two big boys in, or you save yourself your 100k and you go with someone like a Rob, or you save yourself, 150k and go with an English or, if you're feeling lucky, a Nick Nat. But yeah, look, for me, mate, I don't actually see him majorly improving his average. And that's a bit of a funny thing to say because he's just coming in to the 2020 season after a terrific year last year. Obviously, by far and away his best averaging year. He's the number one ruck down there at St Kilda. He's coming into the right age bracket. So you're probably thinking, what on earth don't you like about the pick? Well, I don't like the fact that Paddy Ryder's made his way to the Saints. I've mentioned before as well that he'll play predominantly forward, Ryder I know, but he will be chopping out in the ruck. And with Marshall, yeah, given the fact that Ryder will be taking some of that extra ruck time, I've never really rated any of the St Kilda rucks that they've had down there, to be quite honest. I don't even know if Long is playing anymore. Is it White that they've got down there possibly as well? There may be someone else that I'm completely forgetting about. But yeah, it's a funny thing to say, but I don't see him massively improving on that average. I certainly think that a Rob could certainly compete with Marshall for an average at the end of the year, and I think they'll end up with pretty similar averages. So if that's the case, if that's what I'm thinking, why would I spend the extra K on Marshall? Why wouldn't I simply start with Rob? So look, it's a no from me, mate. Again, I could have egg on my face at the end of the year when he smashes out a 115, 120 average, but I personally don't see it happening, mate. I'd either pay the extra 100k or save the 100k and spend that elsewhere, mate. But yeah, great question. We certainly with Gawn, maybe looking likely, maybe not at this stage. We need to look at every other option. So I'm wrapped with the fact that you are looking outside the box anyway, mate. Jace82. G'day, mate. Is a 95 average enough for an M8? If not, what is the lowest average that you would accept? Yeah, great question, mate, because I think a 95 average is pretty acceptable for a defender or a forward. If you could say, look, pay this much for this player, 95 average, back or forward, I'd take it most times than not. But when we look at our midfield, that's apart from the rucks, I know, with your Gawn and your Grundy, that's where all of our big points are made. Okay, so a 95 average for an M8, it probably doesn't cut it for me, mate. The ideal M8 for last year would have been the Bont with an average of 114.7, but that's in an ideal world, and rarely do we finish with the best 8 mids in the league. So that's an absolutely ideal world. But to put it into perspective, a 95 average last year would have placed your mid-8 at 42nd for overall averages in the midfield. Dom Sheed actually averaged right on 95. So you need to ask yourself if a Sheed type of player would cut it for you. For me, it's a no. Also, well, my mid-8 last year was Matty Crouch, and he averaged 103.7, and he ranked as a 20th overall ranked mid for season averages last year. I'd say that probably 105 to the 110 mark is acceptable for an M8. That would be good, I think. But there's one really important factor that we also need to consider, and that's when you get them. A bloke could have a down start, average 95 over the first 5-6 rounds. Then you pick him up as a fallen premium, and he averages 110 for the rest of the season. So his overall, average might be around that 103 mark when everything's said and done. But in reality, he's averaged much higher for your team as well. So, yeah, the important thing to look at is how much is this player going to average when you pick him up? That's the important thing, because you can't get the points that he's already made when you didn't have him in the side. The points are gone. And I think lots of people tend to chase those points. Someone's had a massive round where they've gone out and banged out a 160, a 170, and then everyone thinks, let's jump on board. And look, their price might go up for a little while there, but it generally goes back down a little bit as well. So, look, it's really important to get these players at the right time, I think. But, yeah, good question. But, Yeah, in short, Jace, 95 average, no, definitely wouldn't cut it for me at an M8 anyway, mate, generally speaking. The last one here for this section before we get into the next ones. I'll see how I'm going for time. I'll try to be a little bit quicker, sorry. How much money does a rookie need to make before we cull them? Another tough one, mate. I know I keep using this word, but again, it's circumstantial. Look, as a general rule, I don't like trading out a rookie for less than 150k profit, but sometimes we've got no choice. If they get injured, we most likely need to move them on, and if they are, consistently putting up 40s each week, then we need them out of our sides as well. And the other issue is that with all these players, that sometimes they only need one good score if they're averaging in that around that 40 mark of say 85 plus, and they're on the upward trajectory again. So ideally, we'd love to make 150 to 300k, and hopefully we can on most of our starting rookies, but it's certainly not a guarantee. So look, I'd love to be around that 200k mark to 250 mark. But we'll just have to see, what happens during the season, mate. But yeah, good question. Sorry I couldn't give you a terrific answer there. But yeah, very much again, mate, circumstantial. All right, so the next one here is from TJ. G'day, mate. Thanks for all your help, DR. Love the vids. No worries at all. Appreciate the support, bud. What qualities do you look for when selecting a defender, TJ? Well, look for a number of things, to be honest, mate. You got the obvious things that you look for in players from all lines, such as, their ability to win their own ball, make good decisions with the ball in hand, effective disposals, tackling pressure, look down to durability, the list goes on. But some things I suppose to look for specifically in defender, well, number one, what role do they play in the defensive half? If they're a key defender or a lockdown defender, then I'm not interested in them, mate. But if they play as that third defender playing that inset role, or if they're running half back, then I'm much more interested in them. We've also got to look at their kick to handball ratio. We'll need to see if they're going to get some easy points from any kick out duties, and we know that some players rely more on the loose ball gets. I'm pretty sure now that I say it actually that you get a +4, I think it is, for a loose ball get. So the points just get racked up. And I think that you get 6 to 8 points for an intercept mark as well. So that's where someone like Sicily comes into play and could be a really good option. But yeah, I suppose they're the qualities that I look for, mate. And in short, if they're a key defender or a lockdown defender, then my advice would be to scroll past them, mate, and look for some other options. Next one's from Bomber. Hey, champion, how are you, mate? What are your thoughts on Toby McLean? Had him in 2018, and he did well for my team. Haven't heard his name much this year. Yeah, and I think for good reason, mate. I also had him in 2018. I started with him, and he was my preseason pick for the #1 breakout player of the year. But unfortunately, due to a lack of midfield minutes, he dropped his average last year by close to 25 points. And for someone his age, that's not a good sign. But, why is he going backwards? I think this one's pretty easy. He rarely featured in the midfield, and I've heard very recently that this year he'll play predominantly forward again with minimal midfield minutes. You got players like Lipinski that are probably going to spend more time in there. And, look, without doubt, he's a better player than his 2019 average would suggest, but he simply doesn't have a Supercoach-friendly role anymore, which would suggest that he'd continue to be pretty relevant Supercoach-wise. But, look, if the Dogs get a couple of, mid to long-term injuries to some prime midfielders, he's got the ability to fill those roles, and he may be a good, well, depending on what the situation is, either a good upgrade or a downgrade option in the right circumstances. But yeah, certainly not looking to start with him, mate. But we'll see what happens during the year if he gets his opportunity to go in there, not just in the short term, but looking to be mid to long term, as I said, then he's someone that we might have a look at, mate. Next one, Sucker Punch. G'day, mate. Should we start safe and just select the highest price player from all lines? He's got Lloyds, obviously in the backs, McRae, Grundy, and Whitfield. So start with Grundy, absolute lock. I think you're crazy if you don't start with him. Everyone should have him as their R1, no questions asked. A must-have, Grundy. McRae, I think he'll be in the top 3 for, overall averages in the midfield by the end of the season. Pretty much a no-brainer. Expensive, I know, but he should reward you with some really consistent scores. Rarely goes under 100 or misses a game. Whitfield, look, there's been some question marks over his pre-season. Hasn't been as smooth as I would have liked, from what I've heard anyway. But I simply don't like any other options down there apart from Dusty, so I'm just going to lock him in at this stage, mate. Look, if there was other options, I'd certainly look at them. But yeah, I think I'll just play it safe and lock him and Dusty in. Pretty much the same with Gawn as well. If he gets up and plays a pre-season game and looks half decent, then I'll pretty much just start with him as well, I think, mate. The one I wouldn't, I'm not starting anyway out of the 4 is Lloyd. Do I think he'll be a top 6 defender? Yep, certainly do. But do I want to start with him at, at 590? Then nah, that's too much for me, I think, mate. We saw what happened when Dawson played a more predominant role down there in the latter half of the season. Lloyd still scored well. Don't get me wrong, for a defender, still scored, really well. But, his average certainly did go down. So, look, I'll look to get him in ASAP, but I'm hoping to get him somewhere between the 500 to 550 mark. Yeah, I'm not comfortable paying 590 for a bloke that I think will come down in price. And look, they'll all come down in price, all 4 players at some stage. But I think that Lloyd, out of the 3 of them, will probably go down the most in price, I think, at some stage of the year anyway. Next one's from Brian. G'day, mate. When are we going to see a face reveal, DR? Yeah, look, to be quite honest, mate, I think I've got more of a head for radio. And look, I wouldn't even have a clue on what to do. I don't have the technology. I just download a little free program just to make these, mate. But look, I suppose if it makes things more personal, or there's lots of people that want it, then I'll look into it. But certainly don't have any plans in the near future anyway, mate, to get me ugly mug up there. I think it might scare any little kids that are around if they walk past and you're watching a video. But yeah, look, we'll see one day maybe, mate. We'll see how we go. But good on you, Brian. Thanks, pal. And what do we like for time? Sorry guys, I might leave it at this one. Yeah, I'm sorry if I didn't get to other questions. I do have more to get through, but I know that I don't have a great attention span. We're getting close to half an hour, I think, so I might leave it there. But I will get to this question, and then I'll have to make another one. I know there's some more questions. I think there's about 10 other questions on the last Q&A video that I haven't answered yet. I will make another video, include those as well. So yeah, I do apologise if I didn't get to everything. With this video, I was planning on getting through this a lot quicker, but as I'm doing now, I'll go on and on. So I'll get to the question. Birdie, are you still going to ignore Pendles this year, DR? The decision will come back to haunt you if you don't select him. So I've actually played in a few cash leagues with Birdie the last couple of years. Big Collingwood man, loves Pendles, and I don't blame you, mate. Probably the most, the unluckiest player, I think, in the last decade not to take Charlie home. He's been so consistent, and in the past he's been, along with him and the little master Gaz, the 2 picks that I just lock in basically every year for my Supercoach. But the last couple of years I haven't gone with Gaz and Pendles, mate. I've looked for the up-and-comers, your Olivers, your Callys, these sort of blokes. They're the ones I'm interested in this year. And look, I just think he's too old, mate. Is he a champion? Of course he will. One of the best players ever to don the Collingwood jumper, the black and white stripes. But yeah, he's getting over the hill for me, mate. Still a great player, but I think he's becoming more and more irrelevant when it comes to Supercoach. Certainly hope for your sake, mate, he bangs out a nice little average there. Certainly still got a lot to give to football. Don't get me wrong, I'm not riding off this champion. But Supercoach-wise, mate, I think there's a heap of better options. But good luck to the Pies, buddy. I sort of mean that. But yeah, look, I'll leave it there, guys. Again, thanks so much for all the questions. I will make another video, hopefully the next day or two, with the rest of the questions. And look, if there's more and more and more, and you are actually enjoying these videos, then I'll continue to do it. If you're not, let me know, and I'll just try to answer some of the questions in the comments. Just type a quick response there if the videos aren't your thing. So thanks again, guys, for all the support. Good luck with the planning, and I'll see you again very, very soon. Thanks very much for watching until the end, guys. As a little bit of a bonus, I've got the league code down there for the first Supercoach with DR subscriber league. So that's 202-209. Feel free to join up, and it's first in, best dressed. Thanks again, guys. Bye.